Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers, coming to you from Carson City. On the broadcast today, Supreme Court Justice James Hardesty, plus on the Power Pundit panel, Ruben Murillo, Bryan, Wachter, and Paul Moradkhan. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
From your house to the White House, the folks at D&D Roofing can get it fixed with their eyes closed.
Nearly 200,000 Nevadans work in retail businesses, supporting families and the community. Nevada's retail businesses generated over $2 billion in sales tax revenue in 1 year, including nearly $700 million to help our schools. Shop around and see all that Nevada's retailers offer our state.
We're the Retail Association of Nevada, representing thousands of Nevada businesses.
Businesses that work for Nevada.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Safety is the #1 priority for the trucking industry. Over $7 billion a year is spent on technology, like this electronic eye, that will apply the brakes automatically. But the most important factor for safety is the truck driver. These hardworking men and women who safely move over 70% of our nation's freight and 94% of Nevada's. We thank you because trucks move America forward.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're coming to you from Carson City in the old Supreme Court, which is very fitting here in the state capitol. We have Justice James Hardesty joining us. It's a pleasure to have you back on the program, one of the very first guests on this program back in 2002. I wanted to start out by asking you about Justice Charles Springer, who recently passed away. The Reno Gazette-Journal published a 2/3 of a page obituary, which was telling a remarkable story. But what shocked me was that there was no actual news coverage of this remarkable justice. Would you care to comment about Justice Springer and his career?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed about that myself. Justice Springer was and is a wonderful man. I felt very bad for Jackie. She's really a great lady and they're a terrific family. Justice Springer made a tremendous contribution to this state in his public service. And during his time on the court, while there were certainly differences of opinion, both personal and professional, among the justices, I look at their writings because, frankly, from the standpoint of a successor justice, we're bound by prior precedent and we are influenced by the words and thoughts of those who preceded us and established published law. And Justice Springer, I thought, did a really good job of analyzing and articulating his points of view with respect to the law, and certainly we look at those when we're deciding current cases. My former law partner, Justice Young, sat on the court with Justice Springer, and I know that the two of them had some personal tensions, but at the end of the day, they were both very intellectual, very motivated, very intelligent. Coincidentally, just this past week, Justice Noel Manoukian also passed away. And I know that there was a lot of controversy on the Supreme Court during the time that he was on the court, and reasonable people can differ about what caused that. But Justice Manookian, I think, was a wonderful man. His wife is terrific. I had the opportunity to meet and work with him, and he too made a great contribution to the law in the state. It's, you know, the role of a justice on the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, is certainly one that probably isn't very noticed. It's a quiet constitutional office, but the decisions that are made are extremely impactful on the people of the state and on the laws of our state. And all of these people have made great contributions to Nevada law, and I applaud their service. I know how hard it is to serve on the court. I know how much time it takes, and I know how much work is involved. And having succeeded all of them, I've had a chance to see what they've done internally at the court, and I know that they are all highly respected by the staff of the court and really appreciated the interactions. Perhaps the one major difference that existed from the time of their service to today is the interaction among the justices. I think since I've been on the court, and certainly for a few years before that, justices have really made an effort to be as collegial and as scholastic and as academic as possible. And even though there may be differences in what the law is or ought to be, we express that in as professional a manner as we can without personal barbs or digs.
And if people want to know more about this, they can certainly Google Nevada Supreme Court and read all about it, because it really was a tumultuous time. But doesn't this point to the lack of institutional knowledge whereby such greats could pass and the general public, for the most part, is not aware of it unless they read the obituary column?
I think that's probably right. I mean, many of the justices have had huge influences on the law. And returning to your initial question about Justice Springer, he was a huge proponent of juvenile justice reform and accomplished a great deal during his service on the court in that area. Justices on the court aren't just involved in deciding cases and writing opinions. They're also involved in rulemaking and administration of the court system. And Charlie was heavily involved in the juvenile justice system, and ultimately, as the family court came about in 1991, was also very heavily involved and a strong proponent of that system. Justice Young was a huge proponent of reforms dealing with how our court would handle criminal cases. They were bogged down. We had then and still have a heavy caseload, but he found ways to streamline that system and produce more prompt dispositions and resolutions. So each of the justices has had an impact on various areas of the law that were history-making, and I applaud their service. They have gone unnoticed. They didn't do it because they expected to get noticed. They did it because they had a passion for that particular area.
Let's change topics here to journalism. And I know we can't talk about the specific case that has now arrived at the Supreme Court that has been in the news lately, but I guess the definition of a journalist, for example, if you look up in the dictionary, you know, there are no qualifications for a journalist. It's somebody who writes. What are your thoughts on the area of journalism in the electronic era?
Well, journalism has changed a lot, as you know. We now have bloggers and Twitter feeds, and technology has changed a lot about the dissemination of news and the dissemination of information. So the conventional view of a journalist is probably the person with the green visor and the old typewriter. That has changed immensely. I think now there's less focus on the definition of journalism, at least in the general sense, than there is on what the person is actually doing. And what is important, frankly, is the person exercising their First Amendment rights to freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and how should that be assessed. Bloggers and others might say, well, we're not bound by some of the limitations that exist on print media with respect to defamation claims or obligations for accuracy, and yet may later claim that when they're sued, that they should be extended the same protections and privileges that have been afforded historically to journalism, whether it's protection of sources, whether it's protection of their editing processes, whatever it may be. And so it's really kind of an interesting era in the law. How will courts assess the First Amendment privileges in the context of this rapidly evolving technology system for the transmission of information?
All right, let's take a break. More with Justice Hardesty after this.
Tamarack Junction is South Reno's hotspot with over 450 of the latest slots and video games. Sully Sports Bar, the Dining Car Restaurant, William Hill Sportsbook, and the Tamarack Steakhouse and Lounge. We're just north of the Summit Mall in South Virginia. Yeah.
Because of UMC, I'm putting my free time to good use.
Because of UMC, she keeps me on my toes.
Because of UMC and this guy, I'm here.
UMC, the highest level of care in Nevada.
Hi, I'm Eric Robnett, owner of Home Energy Experts. Has this ever happened to you?
Honey, did you remember to turn down the thermostat?
Forgetting to set the temperature? Not fun. We can help. Our new smart thermostat keeps the temperature set for your comfort all by itself.
I'm feeling hot now.
To increase your comfort, go to homeenergyexperts.com for details. That's homeenergyexperts.com.
The signs and symptoms of cataracts can start out small with subtle changes in your vision. So don't wait. Be proactive and take your vision into your own hands. If you're experiencing the onset of cataracts or just have questions, contact your eye care professional or call Eye Care Associates of Nevada today. Dr. Hiss has years of experience specializing in the surgical correction of eye disorders and has completed over 84,000 vision correcting procedures. At Eye Care Associates of Nevada, we'll change the way you look at the world.
The Tamarack Junction Steakhouse is known for signature steaks, handcrafted cocktails, and world-class wines. Join us Thursdays and Friday nights from 4:30 to 6:30 in the Steakhouse Lounge for live music, gourmet plates, and well-priced wines, just north of the Summit Mall on South Virginia.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Supreme Court Justice James Hardesty. Much is being made of the first female majority in the legislature, but this is also the first time the Nevada Supreme Court has had a female majority. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think in both cases it has illustrated the fact that the state of Nevada is now prepared to recognize equality in the gender of those who represent them in the legislature and on the Supreme Court. I think that it is admirable that that's the case and probably is more representative of the population. But one thing that I would caution everybody about is while there are differences certainly between men and women and how they approach certain subjects, it is also true that not all women think the same way, as not all men think the same way. They think for themselves, they're independent, and certainly that has been the case on our court. Now, I am proud of the fact that we have gender equality on our Supreme Court. I am hopeful that at some point along the road our court will be more reflective of racial equality. Justice Douglas was the first African American on the court. He retired and has not been his position has not been replaced by someone of racial diversity. But as to the women, they're bright, they're intelligent. I can tell you that the women on our court they have different points of view, I can assure you, but they are really smart. They are good writers. They are very engaged, and it's been a pleasure to work with them.
And it's been interesting. I mean, if you go back and look at the U.S. Supreme Court, when Sandra Day O'Connor was appointed, there was a lot of press and a lot of discussion. But of recent years, it doesn't seem to strike me that when we read writings from the Supreme Court, that gender has any role in what comes out of that court. It's more the writings and the opinions, not the gender.
I think that's right. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is an extraordinary writer on our court. I think Justice Pickering is an outstanding writer, and I think people are going to find that Justice Stiglitz and Justice Silver and Justice Kadish are also going to be excellent writers and do a terrific job. I think they'll also find that they have differences of opinion about the law as opinions are published. I know that from conferences we've already had since the first of the year. But what is impressive is this continuing effort that started probably 20 years ago to make the Nevada Supreme Court less about, news activities because of infighting, and rather a respectful institution that is thoughtful and takes each case one at a time and does its best to try to understand and decide that case.
All right. What I'd like to do, with your permission, is hold you over for a segment we'll run next week where we want to talk about what's going on at the legislature with criminal justice reform.
Sure.
So we'll be right back.
Dimitri Prine here for Design Outdoor. Come visit Design Outdoor's store and backyard to see our wide selection of fire pits, barbecues, and pizza ovens, natural stone water features and fountains, and frost-proof pottery. Our store and backyard are located at 11600 South Virginia, just north of DeMonte Ranch Parkway. Visit designoutdoor.com or call us at 851-9499.
One of the most psychologically damaging things parents can do to children in divorce is disparage one another, which is why I can't believe I even have to make this commercial. Half of your kids' genetics come from this person you're spewing hate about. Your children have the right to love you both, but more than that, they deserve to love themselves.
Marilyn York might be a men's rights divorce attorney, but this is for every selfish parent. Shut up!
Hi, I'm Dave Newman. Remember me? I used to be the house detective, and now I'm a realtor, full-time at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates. A lot of people ask me, how's the market? You know what? It's fantastic. If you're even kicking around the idea of buying or selling, give me a call. Let's talk about it. Call me at RE/MAX Realty Affiliates and just ask for the guy who used to be the house detective, Dave Newman.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we have a great Power Pundit panel. They were on last week, and they were having a discussion after we stopped taping. I said, hold it, we need to put this on tape. So welcome back to the program, Ruben Murillo, who's president of the Nevada State Education Association, Bryan Wachter, senior vice president of the Retail Association of Nevada, and Paul Moradkhan, vice president of government affairs for the Las Vegas Metro Chamber of Commerce. All right, so we're going to start with you, Bryan, because your complaint at the end of the last segment that we taped was that you were offering up a considerable amount of tax money and it was not being accepted.
Well, I think I was shocked that we're having a conversation about
going after people because they're wealthy as a way to raise additional revenue.
And we're talking about for schools.
Sorry, for schools or well, for any revenue. But you're talking about making sure you're going after a group of people because you feel like you should, as opposed to whether or not you're designing a good tax policy for the state that can actually sustain itself going forward and provide the raises and the increases that the education system needs, that our state IT system needs, that every part of our system needs. You need a sustainable force. So if your taxes are meant to punish folks for success as opposed to provide that foundation, then I have a concern.
So for me, it's not punishing those who make more money. It's about finding a fair way for them to contribute. With this conversation came up because of property taxes. Before the recession or during the recession, property taxes were reduced in some cases and to a level where you didn't have to pay as much as you did before. But now that the economy is booming, houses are being sold and there's no taxes being paid on them in some cases. So some people are getting away with not paying taxes. And I'll tell you that if you are selling multi-million-dollar homes, or even homes that are in the $300,000 and $400,000 range, and not paying your fair share of property taxes, then our school system suffers. The other thing is that a wise man once said that there's three poles to the stool that are taxes, and one of them is missing, and that's because we don't have a state income tax. So we have to struggle to find
several.
Hang on. You don't have a state income tax, period. You have other ways to look around it, but you don't have that steady source of revenue. So we're always looking for ways to patch the tax structure so that we can get more money into services, whether mental health, public education, and all. We don't have that third leg of the stool. So we're always struggling, we're always looking. Now, sure, I make a decent amount of money. I'm willing to pay my fair share of taxes. And the conversation has to be, when does everybody come in together and not necessarily make those who can least afford it pay sales taxes?
Okay, let me just jump in here with Paul. Do you think there is any appetite at this session or maybe any other session to open up the can of worms that is property taxes? Because basically the property tax laws that we have right now are unconstitutional. We have a split roll, and that's not constitutional.
I think when you look at any tax policy, you have to, and I think that's part of the conversation you have to have in the legislative building is, and this is from the business perspective, tax policy has to be predictable, it has to be stable, it has to be fair, and it has to be balanced. And those are how we look at our issues. So if folks are willing to have those conversations, those factors have to be had in either in the property tax and personal income tax or tax increases. You want to make sure they're not regressive and they're not hitting those groups you don't want to hit. So I mean, if the policies are in place based off those principles, I think people maybe want to have those conversations. But with all the other bills going on in the session, I don't know if folks will have an appetite for property tax reform.
Bryan, the floor is yours.
Well, I just say I'm not going to join Ruben in calling for a state income tax.
I'm not calling for
but what I would say though is that we've got way more than 3 legs to this stool. I mean, the Economic Forum actually projects 7 taxes. We do have an income tax on business income because that's what the commerce tax is. So we have a lot of taxes. What we're not taxing is this service income. And so what you could actually do is lower the sales tax for those who are hardest hit and put on a sales tax for those who engage in discretionary spending on services, which tends to be the wealthy. So the wealthy would actually end up paying more than the average person would pay. In fact, for my family, if the numbers worked out, you would actually see a decrease over time on the number of taxes you pay because I've got 2 kids, they're in school, I got a wife who buys school supplies. We spend a lot of money in sales tax. What we don't spend money on is going to the movie theater or getting a haircut or when an architect's services are rendered. And so there's a path forward that I think could satisfy Ruben's desire to have people who have money pay more and decrease the amount of money that folks on the lower income bracket
Okay, one second, let me get Paul in here. So where does the chamber sit on a service tax?
We would have to see the proposal and what that looks like.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to say is I did not say let's get an income tax set. So don't put words in my mouth.
That's the only way you can go after being wealthy.
What I did say is that we have no income tax. We have to find other ways to get revenue. That's what I said. So without getting an income tax, because it's impossible, it's in the Constitution. So where do we find other revenues? And I appreciate.
So that's a good question. How do you do that?
And well, number one, when you start taxing the stuff that people go to, the movies and barbershops, you are hitting people with less income the most. because that's their avenue for entertainment or for basic services.
It costs $100 for a family of 4 to go to the movies now. I know I'm a family of 4 who goes to the movies. These are large ticket purchases.
And you have the entertainment tax, which is also hitting these families.
But I'm curious if knowing that constitutionally we can't go after an income tax, even though we're already taxing business income, and we agree that we need to look at some property tax fixes, what's the answer then?
Okay, and Ruben, you get the last word here.
No, I think the thing is that we need to take a look at, especially with the property taxes. I mean, it's a sin when houses are being sold and there are no property taxes being paid. You obviously can't say that that's a fair thing.
I just admitted that we have to fix property, but we both know that's not going to provide $1.5 billion. So where does that come from?
Well, that's going to have to be a conversation from everybody. We have our ideas, you have your ideas. It's the legislators who are going to have to make that decision.
And we will continue this conversation on Nevada Newsmakers. Thank you all very much. We'll be right back.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
A bird's eye captures its surroundings at different heights. At Bryan Culpa Photography, we can make your imagination soar over buildings, parks, cityscapes, and beyond. Bryan's images tell the story and get the job done. If you need a new perspective to tell your story, contact Bryan today. Bryan Culpa Photography. Experience the bird's eye view at bryanculpaphotography.com.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Miner, and I'm sure you'd agree that Nevada's a very special place to live. I was born here, and my husband and I have raised our family here. I feel it's a privilege to live and work in the Truckee Meadows. I especially enjoy helping my clients reach their real estate goals. Sometimes the smallest details provide the greatest satisfaction. I'd be complimented to talk to you about your next move.
Call Marilyn Miner at Dixon Realty, 742-1280, or log on to marilynminer.com.
St. Ives Florist, for every holiday and every special occasion. For romance. Custom home design. We have the largest selection of fresh flowers in northern Nevada. And we also offer a large selection of unique gift items. Come see me, Lori Ann, at St. Ives Florist, 700 South Wells Avenue, or call me at 333-9190.
Pro Group Management specializes in providing industries with the necessary components to satisfy and exceed workers' comp requirements. Every business has unique needs and specific regulations. Pro Group Management stays ahead of the curve, providing up-to-date services to keep your industry in top form. Discover how we simplify your tasks, improve efficiency, and reduce expense to keep you moving in a positive direction. Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
On our next broadcast, former Chief of Staff to Governor Gwynn, Mike Hillaby, joins us. We'll see you then.